All right, 3 audience members. 1, 2, 3.
A recent conversation I had with a 5-year-old boy went something like this. "David, how was your day?" To which David replied, "Fine. Philip made milk come out of his nose at lunch. Did you know that milk comes from cows? Did you know that cows poop more than my dog does?" At that point, David made a noise like a rocket ship and blasted out of the room. In contrast, a recent conversation I had with 5-year-old Allison went something like this. "Allison, how was your day?" To which Allison replied, "My day was fine. My best friend Allison had on a new dress, and it was really pretty. I liked it a whole lot. Her mommy bought it for her. Her mommy's going to have a baby. I wish my mommy would have a baby. Are you going to have a baby too?" Now, unlike David, at this point, Allison was sitting on my lap, and she had played with my hair and fixed my shirt collar. So you can see by these brief illustrations of conversation that boys and girls differ in the ways of their communication and their mindset. If I had tried to get David to sit on my lap, it would have been a disaster. By the same token, if I had tried to get Allison to give me facts using short, brief sentence, it would have been an equal disaster. But because I related to them, keeping in mind their differences in communication, we got along just fine. You see, boys and girls are different, and this translates over into their learning styles as well. Boys and girls learn in different ways, and these different ways need to be addressed in the classroom. Today, I hope to convince you that educating boys and girls in gender-separate classrooms in the public school will lead to higher performance. First, we'll look at striking differences in brain development between boys and girls. Next, we'll look at how reduced discipline in the classroom of same-gender children leads to a more conducive learning environment. And finally, we'll see how qualified teachers teaching in same-gender classrooms can produce children with higher test scores. Now, educators and researchers have always known that boys and girls learn differently, but they didn't know why. Fortunately, with modern technology and advances in technology, we now have more sophisticated equipment so that we know exactly why boys and girls' brains are different. According to Leonard Sachs in a 2005 article on same-gender education, researchers at Virginia Tech used sophisticated electrophysiologic imaging on 508 children ranging in age from 2 months to 16 years. And what they found was quite striking. You see, in girls, on their brain scans, they could see that the area of the brain that dealt with language and fine motor skills developed 4 years earlier in girls than in boys. But the areas of the brain that dealt with spatial and geometry developed 4 years sooner in boys than in girls. So what this means is that when it comes to teaching writing and reading, the brain of a 12-year-old boy is equivalent to the brain of an 8-year-old girl. When teaching geometry and spatial relations, the brain of a 12-year-old girl is equivalent to that of a 12-year-old boy. So you see, if you try to teach them the same way at the same time, what you're going to get is a 12-year-old girl who thinks she can't do geometry, and a 12-year-old boy that thinks that writing and reading are dumb. There's another interesting difference. We now know that boys and girls hear differently. Baby girls hear much better than baby boys. And by the age of 12, the average girl has hearing that is 7 times more sensitive than a boy. So this doesn't surprise us in the classroom that when the boys are making noise, it doesn't bother the other boys, but it certainly bothers the other girls. Speaking of boys and noise, one of the things that is interesting is that for every girl that is suspended from school, there are 3 boys that are suspended from school. Elizabeth Weil reports in her 2008 New York Times article that 65% of boys complete high school in 4 years, while 72% of girls complete high school in 4 years. Boys make up 2/3 of the children in special education classes, and boys are more than 1.5 times likely to have to repeat a grade. Michelle McNeil, in her 2008 Education Week report, reported that in the first year that McKillian Elementary School in Columbia, South Carolina, so the first year that they implemented same-gender education classes, the rate of boys that were suspended dropped from 14 in the 2006-2007 school year to only 2 by March of the 2007-2008 school year. So how does all this information about brain imaging and statistics, how does all this translate into a classroom that has fewer discipline problems? Well, the classrooms are going to look different. In a girls-only classroom, the walls are going to be a soft yellow. The lighting is going to be softer. A female teacher with a softer voice to accommodate that more sensitive hearing is going to be a better choice. Girls learn better in group situations. If you've ever been around a group of girls, you know that they are going to talk. So instead of trying to create an environment that forces them not to do what they are biologically predisposed to do, rather create a situation where they are encouraged to discuss and problem solve together. Now, in sharp contrast, in a boys' classroom, the walls are going to be a soft blue. The lights are going to be brighter. The temperature is going to be cooler. Boys tend to do well with competition. So fact quizzes and other competitions in learning are going to work well for them. A male's louder voice is going to work better for them. And boys are going to do better working with only one other partner rather than in a group. So you see, it's not a matter of simply dumping all the boys in one classroom and all the girls in another and expecting to get a different result. It really depends on well-qualified teachers in order to achieve a classroom that's going to produce better test results. Well, of course, one of the problems with this means more training, and more training means more money, right? Well, according to Dr. Leonard Sachs, who is the current leading authority on same-gender education, this isn't true. He states that in only 14 hours of further education, he can train teachers to be able to deal with the special processes and specific instructions that are needed in the separate gender classes. And the proof is in the test scores. In Seattle's Thurgood Marshall Elementary School, which is the poorest in the city and had the lowest test scores of the state, after 1 year of implementing single-gender classrooms, the boys improved their overall test scores on their annual assessment test from 10% to 66%. Even more striking, the girls at Thurgood Marshall in the year before same-gender classes, not one of them passed the math portion of the assessment test. The following year, 53% of them passed the math assessment portion. One other compelling note, in separate gender classes, girls are more likely to take advanced math and science courses, and boys are more likely to take foreign language and fine arts and music and drama classes. So you see, separating boys and girls leads to higher performance. We know this because the brain images of boys and girls are vastly different. We know that we get fewer discipline problems and better learning environments in separate gender classes. And finally, quality teacher instruction can give our society those all-desired improved test scores in separate gender classes. How long was it?
Still here.